Well, here we are in my studio, and we're surrounded by projects that are about to happen, which include fabrics that I've either found here in Indonesia or gathered from different parts of the world. The one I have right in front of me is actually a Japanese kimono, probably from the 40s. Then I have blankets from Timor, and these are Sulawesi fabrics that were actually called cowboy motif from John Wayne movies in the 40s. And Sulawesi is another island, the largest of the Indonesian islands, and they have their own motifs and their own fabrics, and these are also old fabrics that I collected. For many years, the fabrics all came from Indonesia, but in the last 10 years or so, we've been able to get fabrics really from all over the world, and it added to the excitement to be able to do that. So I tend to organize fabrics by color group so that I'll eventually be using them together. And some of these fabrics can be used on either side. So you'll notice that one side is much lighter than the other. And as I do reversible clothing, it gives me a lot of options about how to work with things. Fabric like this is a silk that I batiqued, and the silk is Chinese. The batik is local. This is a fabric that actually was an Armani fabric, and so my guess is it's Italian, although I'm not really positive about it. This is a Korean fabric. They've been doing a lot with metallics in Korea and have been very innovative with really interesting designs. And here I have a lot of ikats that are all from Bali, and they're hand woven. Most of them come from an area called Sidaman, where they do really some of the best weaving in Indonesia. And this particular design was taken from an Indian songket that I brought back. It was a gold threaded fabric that I asked them to copy in their own cotton design. And so it became the most popular sarong in Bali at their Nyepi celebration about 15 years ago. So these are all fabrics that were hand woven, and you can see, but again, they're colors that coordinate with some of what I have over here. When I started my fashion life, it was really not an intentional career, and I always felt I loved cooking with leftovers. I found it more interesting. And when I started doing clothing, I worked with old textiles and fabrics that were of a finite nature. Eventually, I started weaving fabrics to combine with the old fabrics that, as I said, had a finite amount of cloth. And I started doing print mixing as I was working with these materials that were kind of limited in scope. And then I found I liked it. So even though now I have an abundant selection, I continue to do a lot of print mixing. This particular jacket is a combination of probably 6 different materials coming from different points of origin. And even though it's not scraps of fabric, the idea of using the mixed materials came from my early idea of cooking with leftovers. Only these are very elegant fabrics that were gathered from about 4 different countries. So this is a lighter weight version. Actually, it's the same style, and it has Indian hand-woven silk fabric as the body, and then it's got the lace sleeve that makes it cooler and lighter weight, and it's got a hand-painted panel here, as well as being reversible to the metallic side with the lace trim that ties together the body on the inside and the sleeve. And this is all a hand-woven fabric, and hand stitching becomes a pattern in the hand-woven fabric. Plus we have the signature beading. It's more ornate with more detail. So I always liked making clothes that could be reversed, that could have a daytime use as well as an evening use. And something like this can be put with velvet or with silk or with cotton, and it determines whether it's dressy or casual. And inside there's a black vest waiting to come out. So if you reverse it, you have a very different feeling, and it has the metallic in it. So again, it can be very dressy or casual. And most of my clothing that I design has that combination of materials and function. I also have worked a lot with old textiles, as I mentioned, and this particular one is a Japanese obi. I've also taken apart kimonos and used them in other things. This is an example of the kind of hand painting that we do. It's actually hand painted over an ikat design. If you look under the painting, you see the other fabric design woven in. And we have painters here who do traditional Balinese painting on fabric. This motif is from a Japanese kimono.